Right Guys podcast, where even the President of the United States calls them illegals. And now your hosts, Max McGuire and Josh Hammerling. Unmute yourself, buddy. Oh, good. Welcome to
here we go.
Another show.
Welcome back. Another edition of Right Guys podcast. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling.
Yes.
Big stream last week with the State of the Union. Lots of new viewers, so everyone watching coming from that, welcome. Glad to have you. It's weird. We did that stream in lieu of a Friday podcast, which originally I had to do because my son had half day, but then me and him both came down with a fever on Friday, so like we didn't even get to do any fun stuff. It's always weird. You do something like that, and then there's a weekend, and then we get around to Monday, and it's been like 4 days since this, but I still can't get my head around. I can't get my mind off the fact that Joe Biden, right as the meds are wearing off, which like that used to be a meme, but we know that he is on medication for his Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever it is. We know that it has a shelf life, half-life. He only has so much time. If anyone wants to know when Joe Biden's meds wore off during the State of the Union, it's when he shouted out that thousands of Americans have been killed by illegals. Like that's when the meds were off.
Oh,
and I want to break that down. I want to break down the left's response to it. I want to break down Joe Biden's original double down and then subsequent apology, which is wild. Apologizing to an accused murderer, alleged murderer, arrested murderer. Apologizing that saying the wrong word might offend his feelings. Get into how he's not even correct in terms of that, in terms of the definition of undocumented. But I want to go to you. What have you been thinking about this? Because I can't get this one out of my head all weekend.
Well,
thousands of Americans killed by illegals.
The moment he said thousands of Americans have been killed by illegals, I think in the middle of the live stream, I made like a whoa noise, because that's a moment like they must have been training for weeks for him not to say that, right? There's certain words I'm sure that they're perfectly said to him or not said to him. That way he doesn't repeat them, right? Because it's really hard to control whatever comes out of his mouth. And then I started seeing the slow motion videos of Kamala Harris standing behind him when he said it, and the look in her eyes as he said illegal aliens. Like you could see the whole house just falling down. Yeah. Right. She's saying in her head, oh my God, he said it out loud, right? He said it out loud. And I don't know if it was was this a ruse by MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to hand him a button to see if he'd talk about it, to see if he'd slip up? Because he doesn't have the presence of mind to think on the fly.
Yeah.
He does not. And that flustered him. It got him angry. It got him into one with MTG, right? They started having a little back and forth, and you could really see the panic in the room. You saw Mike Johnson sit there and kind of go, he just kind of pursed his lips, and he was like, well, just watching it, waiting to see how it unfold. And it looked horrible. Like the optics on it are bad. Yeah. He said the one thing that they've been denying the whole time. They're our new neighbors, right? In Colorado, we're calling them our new neighbors, not illegal immigrants. And
Colorado, they're asking people to put them in their house. In Denver, they're asking people to start moving them into their houses. So let's watch this. I didn't pull the whole clip because it just got to be such a big video file. I had to go off the clips that have already been pulled by other people. But just as a little preface, what he's talking about going into this was accusing Donald Trump of sabotaging his border bill. And if you understand where he's going with it, he's claiming that Trump sabotaged it to make sure he would look good. Right? So Trump would come out looking well because the bill wouldn't pass. Before, right as the jeering with Marjorie Taylor Greene happens, Joe Biden starts falling apart. So as I play this, just understand he's talking about the border bill, how Donald Trump fought the GOP to kill it, and he's trying to say that Donald Trump thinks he'll win from that. But you'll notice that before this interaction even happens, the train's going off the rails. He's losing the train of thought. It almost is like a Ron Burgundy moment. You can hear he's reading the teleprompter, but he's like, I'm Ron Burgundy? He's almost asking like a question, like, what is this? it starts going off the rails, and it seems that Marjorie Taylor Greene chooses that moment to jeer at him because he's already off the rails. He's already having a hard time. He's already very confused. So let's go ahead and play this clip.
It's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really.
Uh-oh.
It's not about him. It's not about me. Like, it's like Trump wants to make this about him. I'd be a winner, maybe. That's literally, it goes off the rails. Let's listen to it again.
It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really.
Reset.
I'd be a winner, not really. And then you hear Marjorie Taylor Greene shout out Laken Riley, shouting out, say her name, say her name, say her name. So that interaction has already just happened in the middle of a just brain meltdown.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of a brain freeze. He lost his place in teleprompter. He doesn't understand what he's saying. He doesn't get it. He says, I would be winner, maybe. And then he jumps to it to grab the button that Marjorie Taylor Greene had given him walking in.
Laken Riley.
Laken Riley. Josh, I listened to this probably 150 times, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I'm sorry, Lincoln doesn't sound like Laken Riley. All this time, we, other conservatives, have been calling on Joe Biden to say her name. And the first time he does it, he mentions the University of South Carolina football coach, Laken Riley.
I think all right. So there's nothing funny about this, but their aide did point and say, "Oh my God!" Like he picked it up, right? Like the moment they see that happen, she kind of turns it up, right? And he starts reaching for a button he should have never taken in the first place. Like,
yeah,
where was his people on that one?
Yeah,
right. Where were they? Like you throw it away, put it in a pocket, just get rid of it, make it go away.
Don't use it as a
prop. Because it worked. Like it worked as a prop. It worked as a distractor, right?
Yeah.
He was trying to look that up because he may have forgotten the name.
I think
right?
he's using
That's
it for
what
the
he
name.
was looking for.
Yeah.
But he comes up with Lincoln instead of.
Which, by the way, Laken Riley is a person. It's the USC football coach. And so Laken Riley was trending on Twitter. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Pat McAfee show. Pat McAfee, really funny guy, former punter. Hates sleeves, won't wear them. Former punter for the Indianapolis Colts.
That's right.
He is on, and he isn't watching the State of the Union. And he saw Laken Riley was trending. He thought that USC coach Laken Riley had died because Joe Biden mentioned him in the State of the Union. So you have half of Twitter conservatives saying you didn't even say the right name. She's not Laken Riley. You have the other half of Twitter saying, whoa, USC's coach died and the president's mentioning it at the State of the Union. What the heck is going on? And then you have another part of Twitter, the Democrats, saying, oh, he did it. He won that interaction.
An innocent.
Look at Kamala Harris's face.
All right, look at all this body language.
Right there. That's the face. Kind of smacking the gums. Sees him pull out the button, and she's like, "Oh, you like this? This is what I'm saying. Oh, you Republicans are in for it now."
Yeah.
He just grabbed the button. You didn't think he'd say the name. He grabbed the button. Let's listen.
An innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal.
Like that's the moment where I was like, did he really just say that?
No, she's not smiling now. She's not smiling now.
Look at her face. It's the, oh dear God, it's all burning down. What did he do?
Young woman killed by an illegal.
That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself.
Oh, Kamala's like seething. Like she's looking at him in pure hate.
But she's not smacking her gum. She's not, they're in for it now. No, she is deadpanned, right? And so it's important to mention, this is what kind of hit me as a delayed reaction. I'm laying my head down, going to bed, right? And I think about this on Thursday night, and I sit up like, oh my God, he's looking up at the balcony. He thinks her parents are there. Look at him. He is looking up.
Looking at the second level,
That's where they put the guests of the State of the Union.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he actually thinks that they're there. Now, does he think that he's looking up to where his invited guests are sitting, right? Because every president does this. They have guests. They tell them to stand, right? It's all big. It's all a big thing. He's looking up there. They're not there, Josh.
No, they're not.
They're not there. And
That's
they
just
were
insane.
invited. They were invited not by him. They were invited by Representative Mike Collins. He tweeted out last week, I invited Laken Riley's parents to the State Union address, but understandably they have chosen to stay home as they grieve the loss of their daughter. Therefore, the seat reserved for my guests will remain vacant to honor Laken and all American victims of illegal alien crime. So the parents weren't there. They said, no, we need to grieve. We need to grieve. And yet he's looking at his own guests, because every member of Congress, their guests don't all sit with the president's guests.
Right.
He thinks he invited the family there. Now, this is the first time he's attempted to say her name publicly.
Yeah. He got it wrong.
He got it wrong. But in what world does Joe Biden actually think that his team invited the families of a victim of illegal alien crime?
I understand.
Man,
In what world does he think that this is? I mean, like, he's confused.
there's only so much those drugs do to mask the symptoms of dementia, right? And here's one of them, because I'm sure he is getting the best meds. It is timed as perfect as they can get it, right? He has a whole team paying attention to if he can operate.
It's just
in the
Adderall.
public, right?
That's all they give him. It's just Adderall.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe
That's
there's
just it.
therapies
Maybe there's
out there.
probably a vitamin.
that
Probably
we don't know about, right? But at least there's people that are giving him the drugs, but there's only so much it can do, right?
Yeah.
It's just not there, right? If he doesn't know how to access it, that's him losing the grip on reality at the State of the Union address in front of the nation and our friends and enemies alike. Like, you can't hide the bad look of that this is in its entirety, and not getting the name right. Wow.
I agree with you. He's losing the grip on the reality. But I think there's another way to look at it too. He has mental decline. He has dementia, he has Alzheimer's, he's got something. Whatever you want to call it, diagnose it as, he's got it. Right?
Something, yeah.
One of the characteristics, one of the side effects, the symptoms of this kind of mental decline, age-related mental decline, is we all know that, like, people, they forget where they are, right? They forget who someone is. Another thing is they forget when they are. They forget when they are. And it's really hard to get someone who is suffering from this type of mental decline to stay in the moment. They end up reverting to the way things were before, the way that they had trained themselves to do things, right? So I know people who have had grandparents suffering from this, and they were convinced that it was still the 1980s, right? So that's like the extreme example of this. I would argue potentially what this is Joe Biden reverting to the way he used to talk about illegal aliens, the way he used to confront this issue, and ignoring the prep he's gotten, in fairness, just in the last couple of years. It's only been the last couple of years that he's stopped referring to the illegal aliens as illegal aliens, as illegals. I have a clip here. We'll play it, and then I want to get back to the rest of this. This is him on Hardball, mid-2000s.
scare an employer in this country, whether he's an agricultural worker or a housewife, into not hiring an illegal because the punishment's so high that if you get caught,
Yes.
it's a huge embarrassment to your family, and you may just get hit with a fine that'll kill you.
Yeah, absolutely, you
can
can,
do
and that's what we should do. Well, I think we should do that.
Because you can't catch
You
everybody.
can't. No, you can't. And the last part of this is that the Democratic position also recognized you got 11 million illegal aliens here. They have to have a way to earn their way into the deal. This is an amnesty.
So I put that up there just to show the base way that Joe Biden has confronted this issue over his decades in Congress has been to refer to them as illegal aliens, even when he's talking about amnesty, which is what this clip is about. Even when he's offering to give them stuff, he still has always called them illegal aliens. So yeah, in one way, Josh, you're right. He's losing his grip on the current reality.
Yeah.
But he's also seems to be going to his base programming, right? His base function before all of these commentators and pundits and consultants have told him, "Oh no, you can't say that word anymore. You can't say that word anymore." Like I know you know this, I know this. When people get up to this age, they start saying stuff that they're really not supposed to say. That's inappropriate. They lose the filter. Right? Well, Joe Biden right now has the biggest filter ever of people constantly chirping in his ear. No, you can't say illegal. You can't say illegal. He lost the filter. He quite literally lost the filter.
And it just shocks me how much the old Joe Biden doesn't look like the new Joe Biden. I mean, it blows me away. They don't even look like the same person.
Different nose, different eyes, different ears. Different.
It looks completely. I mean, that's what happens when you take the top off, right? You got to fix the skin. I mean, the guy's had the top taken off twice, I think, right?
Twice.
That we know of. Right. So
we know 2020. He had a facelift. He had a facelift. There was a nasty scar that he was hiding up here.
But that's stuff you got to do. But the thing is, he's had the top open, right? He's got dementia. He was in poor health before they told him to run in 2020, right? At least they tried to get him to run in 2016. Remember there was that argument, and he said he was out of politics because his son has died, and he told him, I'm going to be out because of it. But Bo's the one that brought him back, yada yada yada. But the guy is just there's only so many times you can have brain surgery. There's only so many times that you can get medicated on this stuff before you start to see the effects. And this is the speech that, remember, they were hanging their hats on to show how that Joe Biden is, right? This is the one that they were saying is going to just get rid of everybody's fears about how his mental decline isn't as bad as I think it is. And he comes out and he starts using what they consider derogatory terms towards illegals, right? I mean, he gets totally off the reservation with the nomenclature he uses to describe people. And it's right. He's going back to what he knows, right? You fill in the blanks with what you know when you don't know. It's just how the human brain works. And he's filling it in with old blanks now, right?
And that is especially when you get flustered. When you get flustered, there are stories of people with Alzheimer's, dementia, still driving, and they get flustered. They forget where they are, so they drive their car to their old house where they don't live anymore, right? They go back to their old routine, what's comfortable, what they have experience with. A family friend of mine, I didn't know him personally, but my parents did. He had brain surgery, came out literally a completely different person. Like if I remember correctly, his marriage fell apart because he just came out completely different. So it's not all that surprising that Joe Biden isn't the same Joe Biden as before. I want to finish this because he's not done with this clip. So he's up there looking for non-existent family members of Laken Riley because he didn't invite them, because he, up to this moment, didn't care about this tragedy. Let's watch the rest of it.
But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers, thousands of people being killed by illegals. To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look,
so this is where, having lost children myself, I understand. This was the other moment that I kind of sat up in my chair and said, "Oh my God. Oh my God." He just compared his son dying from brain cancer to these parents losing their child who was out on a run and was beaten to death by an illegal alien with a rap sheet, who should have been deported, should have been in prison, but wasn't. We'll get to that in a little bit. And he's doing all this looking at a space where they're not there.
Mm-hmm.
But how insulting is it? How insulting is it to say, I know your pain. My son died from brain cancer. Though he often likes to say that his son died in Iraq, which is, it's kind of like an amalgamation of the truth, whereas they suspect that he died from a brain cancer from maybe chemicals he came into contact with in Iraq. That might be, but Joe Biden has transformed that story into his son was killed in Iraq. And that's just what he goes with now. You have any comment and then we'll finish it?
Well, yeah, here's the thing is that when Beau Biden was sitting in the hospital, he probably had the best doctors. He had people by his side. He had his family with him at every single turn, right? He had comfort, and anybody that can do that, God bless him. I would do that for my dying loved one. But the parents of this girl who died, they couldn't be with her in her last moments. No. They couldn't give her the comfort they needed. No. You know, they couldn't protect her when the system has failed her, because that person wouldn't have been here killing that daughter if the border had been secure and we were getting rid of these dangerous people who are making their way into our country, right? So he doesn't know what it's like to have a kid die like that. He doesn't know what it's like to lose a kid in that way. All he knows is he's just filling in the blanks, man. He's got nothing. He's so empty, it's as empty as those seats above him.
Isn't it weird that he's making it about himself too? Like, he does this often. He makes everything about Beau, which I get it. He lost his son. That's terrible. But everything ends up reverting to Beau. Like, oh, this is just how Beau was killed. It reminds me of that. Let's finish this because he says a little bit more.
We changed the dynamic at the border. People pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks.
He's literally explaining the problem. He's not wrong.
Right.
He's claiming that if they pass his bill, it'll only be 6 weeks. That doesn't change the fact that his administration is quite literally approving ridiculous asylum claims. Like I talked on this podcast before that one woman had her asylum claim approved because she said her village thought she was a lesbian because she wore pants to work. She wasn't gay, but the mere perception that she could be gay or that she wears male clothing, pants, was enough to justify asylum. She's still in the U.S. now. Went all the way up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Anyway, it was a stunning moment to me. And then the next day or the day after that, I think the next day, a reporter confronts him on the tarmac as he's getting into the short stairs at Air Force One because he doesn't go up the big stairs anymore. He can't make it.
He's not a big kid anymore.
No. And here is his response to that.
Do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
Well, I don't regret it. Technically not supposed to be here.
So
this is Honest Joe.
It's
unmedicated. Unmedicated. You can't have the medication all the time. You start pumping an 80-something-year-old with amphetamines, he's going to have a heart attack. You only do little bits when it's really important. He said, well, it shouldn't be here. Honest Joe. Honest Joe.
If the Republicans had anybody on their marketing strategy right now, I would immediately take these two clips and put them together saying the best speech against illegal immigrants in our nation's history.
Yeah. Because
it is. He told us the problem. The problem he's not supposed to say.
No.
But he's telling the truth.
He's going to say it's not a problem.
Back in the day.
Saying, and you notice how the reporter asked the question. Said, you called immigrants illegal. No.
Yeah.
He referred to an illegal immigrant, murderer. Accused, arrested murderer of being illegal. But they craft the question to suggest that he called all immigrants illegals, right? Because they can't admit he was referring to one person, or actually a class of people, illegal aliens, illegal immigrants who murder people. Because he said thousands of people being killed by illegals. Well, they got to him, Josh. They got to him over the weekend, forced him to sit down with MSNBC, and he did the mea culpa. He apologized for offending Laken Riley's killer.
Look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect.
So he killed this girl, but I'm not going to treat him with disrespect and call him an illegal.
But he's here illegally. He murdered somebody's poor child, and he's not going to disrespect the cold-blooded murderer. That's what that's the problem we're looking at here.
Yeah.
It's not just insensitive. I can't think of a horrible word for something more than disgusting. It's abhorrent. It's repulsive. It doesn't get any great. It reminds me of the time that he looked at his watch during the funeral.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's twice now. He has said that somebody else besides Americans are the most important people out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
listen,
your president.
I don't like to use the term illegal or illegals, not because I'm worried about offending them. To me, it isn't the most accurate word, right? Because, well, what is it that they've done illegally? People like to interchange illegal immigrant, illegal alien. Sometimes they're the same, right? It's kind of like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't always a square. An illegal immigrant is someone who enters the United States illegally. An illegal alien is someone who is in the United States illegally. There are a lot of people who enter legally, but stay past their visa and qualify as being an illegal alien. They're not an illegal immigrant, but they are an illegal alien. So when you do the shorthand of illegals, which is lots of people do it, it's fine. It isn't entirely accurate because it doesn't describe. They all don't have the same experience, right? And I go through this in my book. I always feel like a broken record when I talk about it, but pick one up if you haven't already, people. I spend the first chapter defining these terms because you really have to. He's calling this guy undocumented. That, oh no, we should call him undocumented. Undocumented's the better thing to call him. No, bullshit. He's not undocumented. Joe Biden gave him documentation. So this guy, we'll put him up on screen, Jose Ibarra of Venezuela, came into the United States illegally. He was an illegal immigrant, right? Subsequently, he claimed asylum. He has a long rap sheet where he was arrested in New York. He was arrested in New York on charged with reckless endangerment of a child and acting in a manner injurious to a child for driving an unregistered, uninsured car with a 5-year-old inside. Now, that wasn't enough to get him deported because under Joe Biden's policies, you don't deport people just because they're recklessly driving on the road. That apparently isn't bad enough. Well, as they start processing him to be removed, he claimed asylum. In his arrest affidavit, the immigration officer wrote, due to a finding of credible fear, Jose Diego Ibarra was released to New York, pending adjudication of his claim of asylum. Jose and his brother Diego claiming that they can't be removed because they have a credible claim. Now, where are they from? They're from Venezuela, Josh. Yeah. From Venezuela. And Joe Biden has made it a point of policy not to deport people from Venezuela because Venezuela is a bad place with a dictator, with a terrible economy, where people are dying. So you cannot, in good conscience, deport people to Venezuela. So they're approving temporary protective status. They're expediting asylum claims. And when an asylum claimer pops up, they just don't deport him because that's a hellhole. That's a hellhole. So all of this is Joe Biden's creation. The guy is arrested. He also was arrested for shoplifting, clearly criminal behavior. But the reckless endangerment of a child, for driving illegally, unregistered, uninsured vehicle, putting a child in danger, it shouldn't come as a surprise that the guy with the super long rap sheet ended up doing this. It wasn't an accident. Joe Biden and his administration did everything in their power to make sure that this killer was on the streets. And it just so happened to be the same street that Laken Riley was running on.
You know, I bet you he was documented right up till he got to the point where he was trying to cross the border in the U.S. and his papers magically disappeared, right? And then he got documentation the moment he walks over because they're going to give you something. There's just something here to help identify you. Yeah.
Remember, the arrest warrant and the release documentation can be used as ID to board a plane, according to DHS. So if they have no ID, the paper that says you've been arrested illegally crossing the border but are waiting for your asylum hearing is good enough to go through TSA security, proving their identity. So they literally give him documentation, right? Which is why you can't call him undocumented. Joe Biden jumped through hoops to give the man documentation. After 6 months, he qualifies for work permits. Like undocumented, the word undocumented means they're living here in the United States illegally and they have no way to prove who they are. Undocumented doesn't really work here or for any of these false asylum claims because Biden is giving them all documentation.
So we can't call them undocumented illegals. They are just illegal invaders because they're not immigrants, right? I don't consider them immigrants. I mean, just giving them the name immigrant means that they've already immigrated to this country and they're due all the things that we are, like the right to vote, Social Security, everything, right?
They came here and they intend to live here. They've migrated here illegally.
So they're illegal invaders. Yeah. That's what they are. You can't even use the word immigrant because that definitionally gives them too much protection, right? I mean, I'm looking for asylum as an immigrant. They're not. They're just walking over the border. They have already broken the law walking into our country. If I broke a law walking into another country, they're going to kick me out that moment. I can't board a flight anywhere in the United States, around the world, without my ID. And if I present something else other than my ID, I can face a felony charge from the federal government for false use of ID.
Yeah,
right.
If they prove that, you can get through. I've done it once and it sucked. I had to use they look at Costco cards, they look at everything, whatever you have. If you're lying about it, then you jump through hoops. Yeah.
Right. And it was a pain in your ass, and you were on the verge of not being able to go.
Yeah.
But these illegals show up and they shine one little piece of paper and nobody cares who they are. Nobody bothered to figure out who this person is. Is this guy's rap sheet back in Venezuela just as long? Because a lot of those towns still have police. A lot of those places have computers that link all of these criminal histories to Interpol, right? International organizations, FBI, right? The FBI will get a rap sheet on this guy from Venezuela in minutes, right? There is stuff facts to them, or they're just bringing up some sort of database. So
they have to ask for it, though.
What's
that? They have to ask for it.
Who? What? Oh, the FBI, right?
FBI. They have to ask for it.
Yeah,
they have to make it. They have to make it a priority. And Biden has said you're not allowed to prioritize these because endangering a child isn't good enough to deport someone.
But that's what we allow over the border. We just allow these reckless criminals. How many people that have come here were released right out of prison to walk out of the country, right up into Mexico and over the border?
Yeah.
Right? How many drug organizations were filling up vans trying to get people here? Right? Yeah. How many people on our side of the border were getting eight grand a piece to smuggle them over and get them to their first place of location? Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean,
you mentioned
I think somebody would ask questions.
You mentioned foreign crime rates, Interpol. While they're not using that kind of database to arrest illegal aliens, we do know that thanks to the Venezuelan mass migration, illegal migration into the United States, we do know that violent deaths in Venezuela have fallen to a 22-year low. So let's be absolutely clear here. violent deaths, people being murdered, things like manslaughter, people being killed in violence, those cases have dropped to a 22-year low in Venezuela. Just so happens to be timed perfectly to the biggest mass migration of Venezuelans leaving Venezuela and coming to the United States. Right? So presumably you think that the killers are still going to do their killing, right? The rapists are going to be doing the raping. The murderers are going to be doing the murdering. Unless they're not in Venezuela anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at this case, this tragedy with Laken Riley, it's a tragedy, but it's a completely avoidable tragedy because we know from the data that the people coming here, not all of them, but a large chunk of them are among Venezuela's criminal class. It's not a stretch to say that Venezuela had the lowest violent death count in 22 years because the violent killers all came here.
Right? They left because they knew they couldn't stay there. Right? And how many stories have they heard that people crossing the border and ending up in New York can go and steal whatever they want and not be arrested? Right? It's like telling a pirate that you can plunder anything and nobody's going to stop you.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They go down, they don't count how much they have to steal anymore. They're just walking out the doors with everything, right? Then we know they're selling that stuff off in Florida.
Yeah.
Or at least selling it off to go to Florida, right?
They're stealing phones, and then they have hackers who will hack into the phones and take the credit card information and steal the money and send it back to Venezuela. This is a criminal enterprise. This is really happening right in front of us. And like we were talking before we came on about in Denver, how Denver is now begging people to let illegal aliens into their houses. They've run out of camps, run out of shelters. They're now asking people to move into the homes, allow people to move into their homes. I'm waiting for. So we know that the illegal aliens are being pushed by nonprofits, right? The nonprofits are helping them game the system, telling them exactly what they need to say, when they need to say it to get in. We also know that there is a huge push in this country among nonprofits to help squatters take over people's homes and fight evictions. They have a whole network of NGOs, nonprofits, that are helping squatters, literally helping squatters fight for the right to live in someone else's house without their permission. I'm waiting for these two nonprofits to get together because it's only a matter of time before the illegal aliens start squatting, claiming that they own people's homes. And you do that in the right states, you could kick a eviction, kick that can down the road for a year. Depending if you play your cards right, you file the right motions and everything. So I'm waiting for that to happen. I feel like that's the next step. They've run out of shelters. People aren't going to voluntarily let them into the home. So these nonprofits are going to help these illegal aliens get into these homes. I believe that's the next step.
It's not too hard to have if they were to ask people to open their homes up to a bunch of illegals and live there. In Colorado, the moment somebody comes in your house and they move one item in, they recognize them as the person who lives in that domicile, meaning that you have to get an eviction notice to get them out of your house, right? And that can take up to 90 days. And you must let them in. Yeah. And they can trash your home in that time, right? It's still liable to that, but good luck in proving that they actually did that. And all they have to do is hang a shirt up in a closet and say, I was told I could live here. And suddenly the power no longer lies to the person who owns the house. You then have to prove as the house owner that they don't live here, right? That they haven't paid rent, and that you must complete all of these crazy eviction notice stuff. It gives them all the power. So all they have to do is ask you to do something nice, and then everyone would get screwed over. But don't worry, they're putting up with all the hotels now, which are completely full.
And the crazy thing is that you're right. They just have to show up, prove that they laid their head there. A lot of times these squatters will have falsified, fraudulent lease documents that they've made up that aren't real at all. All they need to basically do is prove to a cop that it's reasonable. They might be the real tenants, right? That's all they have to prove. And the crazy thing is, yeah, if they get there one day, they can then be protected from an immediate eviction. But they're also when the cops do come to try and evict them the first time, they already have a lawyer on the phone. These nonprofits are quite literally, they present themselves as being about tenants' rights and helping vulnerable tenants, but they quite literally are in the business of helping these squatters steal people's homes, steal their homes. So I fear that's the next step. When they run out of shelters, when they run out of willing hosts, and it's not hard to do, right? Just go on Airbnb, VRBO, find the houses. VRBO is probably better because in VRBO, you can't list a house if you're also going to be living there as the owner. It has to be a single unit that no one else is staying in. Don't want to give them ideas, but just go down the list and just get into one of them and say you live there. And then 90 to 180 days, do it again. I'm worried. I'm worried that's the next shoe to drop.
No one's going to stop you. There's no one who's going to arrest you. There's no one who's going to tell you you're wrong. There's going to be plenty of lawyers telling you that you're in the right and you never signed that. You don't own that house in any way other than you just sit there.
Yeah.
Right. They will forcibly take over your homes, and they can. I mean, they can do it right now. And who's going to stop them? If you decide to try to push them out at gunpoint, guess who's now the bad guy? Guess who becomes, the antagonist in that? It's you, right? Everything that you have in your power to try to stop them, they're trying to turn into a way to get you arrested, because it's going to come to a head, Max. There's only so much Americans are going to take.
Yeah.
And they will take action. And when that happens, I hope it's not violent. I don't want it to be, but history tells us otherwise.
Well, I just saw in Joe Biden's budget, the proposed budget that he wants Congress to pass, setting aside like $250 million for migrant housing. So that's interesting. Literally just want to take our money and build homes for these illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. That's literally what they're asking for now. Maine's already started doing this, building public housing. New York, I believe, is doing it outside the city. There's no room inside the city. So yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And for a brief second, Joe Biden started acting honestly, calling them what they are, illegal aliens, who are quite literally, thousands of Americans have been killed by illegal aliens, continue to be killed by illegal aliens. He looked up in the balcony thinking that surely my team has brought this grieving family here because it's such a big deal. Nope, sorry. You're being led by communist psychopaths who want nothing more than to bring more of these, as we just showed with the data, Venezuelan criminals, Venezuelan killers into this country. It's not a coincidence that Laken Riley was killed by an illegal alien coming from the country that just said they had the lowest violent death rate in 22 years, thanks to migration out of the country. Before we go, I wanted to show something that, let's lighten the mood a little bit, because this is terrible.
Right, this is heavy stuff.
As you didn't get to watch this, you showed up a little late, but there was a long procession, as there always is in the State of the Union, a long procession of Joe Biden sniffing people. A few, I put the over under at 2.5 sniffs. Pretty sure I counted more than 2.5 sniffs. Kissing cheeks, right? He has his tricks. Everyone wants that FaceTime with Biden to be able to show their constituents at home that, hey, I'm right here on the front line, sitting here for an hour waiting to be able to shake Joe Biden's hand. Well, one of the people who Twitter was shocked. It was Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee, conservative as they come, waiting online for a chance to shake Joe Biden's hand. And he got a lot of FaceTime with Joe Biden, a lot of time. And it turns out that he didn't do this because he's a turncoat, as some people hypothesized on Twitter. He did this because he had been informed that Joe Biden was on this medication, amphetamines, speed, uppers, and that he only had 55 minutes to an hour before they wore off. So it would therefore be in the GOP's best interest to delay him as much as possible, right? He's probably taking that pill 10 minutes before he walks in the door. You think it's going to take him half an hour to walk, half an hour for your body to digest it, right? every minute you delay him is a minute more he's going to have to give that speech unmedicated. So Tim Burchett quite literally tracked him down and talked about Joe Biden's two favorite things, Corvettes and ice cream. And apparently got propositioned for a wife swap from the president too. Here's the conversation. Here's him retelling the story on Steve Bannon's show.
You're one of the biggest stars we got. The question I got was, why is Burchett rubbing up on Joe Biden? And Biden came back, 2-3 times to talk to you again. Please tell us, explain this one to us, sir.
Well, I mean, he's medicated, and he has a very limited time. I was told by actually a member of the medical profession in the Democratic Party that he probably had about 55 minutes. So Matt Gaetz and Boebert are standing over there beside me, and Matt says, Burchett, do one of your endless stories, and let's see if you can double the time you delayed him from last year. So I leaned over to him and I said, Mr. President, I said, my brother used to have a 1972 Chevy Corvette, had a 350 in it. And he says, really? And I said, yeah. I said, a girl asked me out one time to a Sadie Hawkins dance, and so my brother let me take it. I said, that was 1980. And then I said, I peeled out in the parking lot of Brunswick Billiards. And then I said, let's see, I started talking about the vet and how I peeled out. And then I said, my wife and I really like chocolate chip ice cream. And then he just looked at me like, wow. And he goes, really? He said, so he started talking about chocolate chip ice cream. And then he asked me if he could have Kelly's phone number. And I thought, you creepy old dude, I'm not going to swap wives with you. And then he got away from me, and Matt said something like, see if you can get him back, Burchett, or something. But then he came back and and I said something, hey, have you seen those new Corvettes? And he said, yeah. He said, man, they're nice. And I said, yeah. I said something about they kind of remind me of Ferrari or something. And then I said, man, they're really fast. And he said, yeah. He said, they'll go 0 to 60. And he goes like this. And he paused, just this awkward pause. And he said, in 1 second. And I was like, what? I was like, man, your eyeballs would be pulled out your ear holes, at that kind of speed, This is like fighter jet stuff. And then he goes, they're electric. And I said, I ain't no fan of those electric ones. And then I just turned.
I'm not aware of electric Corvettes, but that's cool.
They have them. They're very rare. I was just reading 2.9 seconds. 0 to 60, 2.9 seconds. Or if you get the Z07 performance package, 2.6 seconds.
That's great. But look, this is the best filibuster in the history of State of the Unions, right? I mean, if you just shave 5 minutes off of his time, somebody somewhere is like looking at that clock thinking an hour 10 is their max, right?
You line up like 10 Republicans and everyone has this plan. Yeah. You could delay him an hour.
Yeah.
His meds could wear off before he says the State of the Union is strong.
Yeah. Did he say that night? I mean,
every president says that. It's always like in the first couple minutes. He's like, members of Congress, I report today the state of our union is strong. Right? It's always like a throwaway line.
Wow, filibuster. I mean, it's a brilliant move. Like, and it's kind of funny that he's like Gaetz and like there are a couple of like Southern buddies that are just kind of like, let's see if we can delay him.
Gaetz and Boebert saying he's only got 55 minutes. Right. 55 minutes before his crazy pills wear off. Burchett, go talk about ice cream.
Right. One of those endless stories you can tell. And you can tell he's a politician. He's like, okay.
And of course, he gets him on the Corvette and ice cream.
Yeah.
But the shock is the propositioned wife swap.
Right. Let me get her number. Maybe he thinks he's telling a joke, but
no. Like,
wow.
Oh, your wife likes ice cream. Why don't you give me your number? What kind of weird shit's happening in the Lincoln bedroom?
Right. Well, what didn't Joe Biden just say? The good thing that keeps him going is good sex.
Yeah.
Like, listen, there's nothing they won't medicate him for, right?
Yeah.
Here's that little blue pill. I take the blue one or the white one?
Take the blue one, take the yellow one, take the green one.
Right.
Rainbow.
This one with breakfast.
the wife swap is wild.
Yeah.
I think it's great that they got him there twice. He got him to come back a second time to talk about the Corvettes. And then even then, he starts having a brain fog. 0 to 60, wants to sound smart. 0 to 60, and Dr. Evil, 1 second? No.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be going off of an aircraft carrier.
Was delicate there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably also filling him up, trying to see what they could do that night, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of those are really
what are you
smart
doing?
people.
What are you doing out there? Give me your number.
Right. Yeah, what are you going on? What do you got going on? What are you
creepy.
talking to them about tonight, right? And that kind of
So
stuff.
creepy.
They know.
So gross.
I wonder what young Joe Biden was like, right? Him and Jill must have been like,
Yeah.
go been freaking.
Yeah. A lot of ice cream. A lot of dairy. Well, and as we've divulged into the weird now, any final words before we wrap this up?
You know, when Joe Biden says the State of the Union is strong, do you believe him?
No.
When Colorado starts building a whole bunch of houses for what they call the homeless problem, and you realize there's not going to be a single homeless person living in them, and they get counted in the census, think about the people that let them over the border, right?
Yeah.
Just ponder that. That's all.
Shameful. All avoidable. All avoidable, though. And for a brief second, it looked like Joe Biden actually was going to tell the American people the truth. And a couple days later, they forced him to apologize to an accused murderer for calling him an illegal.
Wow.
Well, that's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like the podcast, check out all the links down in that description. We go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so tune in for that. If you like the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the audio edition. I didn't put out one on Friday because we did that live stream. It just didn't make sense to do an audio of Joe Biden's State of the Union. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, when we have podcasts, that audio is out. So tune in for that. Easy to listen to as you're driving, commuting, or whatnot. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerling.
Remember, everyone, the fight to take back the country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all fight together. See you next time.
See ya.